In the shadowed corridors of Topkapi Palace, where Europe kissed Asia across the sparkling waters of the Bosphorus, a former slave once held the ear of the world's most powerful ruler. She whispered strategies that shaped empires, built hospitals and mosques that still echo with prayers centuries later, and shattered traditions forged in blood and iron. But her journey began not in marble halls, but in chains, dragged from a quiet village by raiders who saw her only as cargo. How did a red-haired girl from the fringes of Eastern Europe rise to command the heart of Suleiman the Magnificent, and rewrite the fate of the Ottoman Empire? The early 16th century unfolded like a vast, restless tapestry across Eurasia. In the remote villages nestled among the hills of what is now western Ukraine, life moved to the rhythm of seasons and church bells. Simple wooden homes dotted the landscape, surrounded by golden wheat fields that swayed under vast skies. Families tended the soil, raised children, and prayed for protection from the unpredictable world beyond their horizons. Into this world, around the turn of the century, a girl entered life, later known to history as Hürrem, though her birth name faded into the mists of time. She grew with a spark that set her apart, fiery red hair framing a face quick to smile, a sharp mind that absorbed stories and songs, and a warmth that drew people close even in hardship. The air carried the scent of fresh bread and earth after rain, laughter mingled with the distant lowing of livestock. Yet this peaceful existence stood on the edge of danger. To the east lay the steppes, where horsemen from the Crimean Khanate rode like thunder, raiding for captives to fuel the bustling slave markets of the Black Sea. Far to the south, a colossus stirred. The Ottoman Empire, under the young Sultan Suleiman, stretched like a giant awakening, its borders pressing against Vienna, its fleets dominating the Mediterranean, its capital Istanbul a dazzling metropolis of 500,000 souls. Grand mosques pierced the clouds, bazaars overflowed with silks and spices, and the Topkapi Palace hummed with the machinery of power. Suleiman himself embodied the empire's zenith, a warrior expanding frontiers, lawgiver crafting justice, a poet capturing the soul's longings, all while barely into his 20s when he ascended in 1520. Within his palace lay the harem, a private world of intrigue, education, and survival, far more complex than outsiders imagined. One fateful day around 1520, the thunder arrived. Raiders swept into the village, their horses kicking up dust clouds that choked the air. Screams pierced the calm as families scattered. The girl, perhaps 15 or 16, was seized amid the chaos, ropes biting into her wrists, her world reduced to the pounding of hooves and the sting of fear. Marched hundreds of kilometers through unforgiving terrain, she endured exhaustion, hunger, and the grim uncertainty of captivity alongside other villagers. Sold in the Crimean markets like livestock, she crossed the Black Sea in the hold of a ship, the salt spray mixing with tears. Upon reaching Istanbul, she entered the harem's labyrinthine quarters. Stripped of her old life, renamed Hürrem, the cheerful one, for the resilient laughter that refused to die, she stood at the bottom in a sea of hundreds. No Turkish on her tongue, no allies in sight. Yet something unspoken burned within, an unyielding spirit that observed, adapted, and refused to dim. What hidden quality allowed this outsider to not only survive but begin weaving herself into the fabric of imperial power? The harem was no mere prison of luxury, it pulsed with ambition, learning, and quiet rivalries. Women studied music, poetry, languages, and court etiquette amid fragrant gardens and echoing marble chambers. Hürrem threw herself into this new reality. She mastered Turkish with remarkable speed, devoured literature, and honed a wit that sparkled in conversations. Her laughter, genuine and disarming, cut through formality. She was not the most conventionally striking, yet her intellect and warmth proved magnetic. Suleiman, returning from campaigns or buried in statecraft, found in her something rare. Late evenings in private chambers filled with the glow of oil lamps, they spoke not just as ruler and consort but as companions. He shared the weight of governance, the poetry of governance and the burdens of war. She listened deeply, offered insights sharpened by her outsider's perspective, and treated him as a man of flesh and dreams rather than untouchable sovereign. Their bond deepened beyond tradition. She bore him children, 5 sons and a daughter, yet unlike others, she remained close, her presence a constant in his life. This was no fleeting favor, it was the first tremor of upheaval. As years passed, tension coiled around the throne. The Ottoman succession was merciless, only one son would rule, often at the deadly cost of his brothers. Hürrem's rival, Mahidevran, mother to Suleiman's eldest, Prince Mustafa, a capable, army-adored heir, represented the old order. Whispers filled the palace corridors scented with rosewater and intrigue. Alliances formed and fractured, eyes watched every move. Hürrem navigated this viper's nest with cunning and grace. She corresponded with foreign leaders, advised on provincial matters, and channeled her influence into benevolence. In Istanbul, she commissioned the Haseki Sultan complex, a mosque for worship, a school nurturing young minds, a hospital easing suffering, and kitchens feeding the hungry daily. Fountains brought clean water to the thirsty, baths offered dignity to the poor. Funds reached holy cities and even aided ransoms for captives. Her actions painted her as both visionary and survivor in a world where power demanded ruthless choices. Yet shadows lengthened. By the 1550s, the succession crisis peaked. In 1553, during a campaign, Suleiman ordered Mustafa's execution by silk cord, a method sparing royal blood. Grief swept the empire. Accusations pointed toward Hürrem's influence, though records remain veiled in ambiguity. She had not invented the system's brutality, but in protecting her son's futures amid existential stakes, she played its deadly game. Personal sacrifices mounted, the isolation of constant vigilance, the emotional toll of loss, and the fear that love itself might invite destruction. The pinnacle arrived in the early 1530s, when Suleiman took an unprecedented step. He freed Hürrem from slavery through formal decree, then married her as a free woman, defying 2 centuries of dynastic custom. No sultan had wed a harem consort in this way, tradition dictated distance after bearing heirs. Court officials reeled. Ambassadors scribbled dispatches in stunned tones. In grand ceremonies heavy with incense and silk, the former captive became Haseki Sultan, legal wife and partner to the Magnificent. This union radiated across the empire. In private, their love endured, poetic exchanges, shared visions for the realm, and quiet moments overlooking the Golden Horn. Publicly, it signaled a new era. Hürrem's voice carried weight in diplomacy and reform, her presence challenging the invisibility long imposed on women of the court. The ceremony, with its opulent processions through Istanbul's bustling streets lined with awed crowds, marked the emotional and historical apex, a testament to resilience triumphing over chains, intellect over precedent. Hürrem's final years brought both triumph and frailty. She passed in 1558, likely in her mid-50s, her body weary from decades of influence. Suleiman, the conqueror of lands, was undone by sorrow. He composed aching verses lamenting his cheerful-faced love and laughing leaf, commissioning her tomb beside the majestic Suleimani mosque he had built. When he died in 1566 on campaign, he was laid to rest beside her, 2 souls intertwined in eternity. Their son Selim too ascended, but Hürrem's true monument was the Sultanate of Women, an era where mothers and wives steered policy for generations. Her charitable works endured, sustaining communities. Her story rippled outward, inspiring art, drama, and reflection on power's human face. From raided village to imperial heart, she transformed personal tragedy into enduring legacy, proving one voice could echo through centuries. Hürrem Sultan's life reminds us that history's greatest shifts often begin in the quiet defiance of the human spirit, refusing to let cruelty define one's core, turning adversity into agency. In an age of empires built on conquest, she forged influence through wit, compassion, and unyielding will, leaving the world more humane in small but lasting ways. Her journey from captivity to partnership challenges us to consider our own chains. What unseen barriers do we face, and how might our voices reshape them? What part of Hürrem's extraordinary path resonates with you most, the unbreakable laughter amid loss, the daring break with tradition, or the complex choices of survival? Share your thoughts below. History's lessons await those who listen. Until the next chapter, keep rising.